welcome back to the sort of meet the referee almost on this GOLDIE Lockdowns adventure, the second part that we're doing now. Again, we're joined by Adam, and we're really grateful for his time this evening. What I think is really, really important that we now go into is that we start to talk about the non-verbal communication side as we now look at the second part of the clip, following on from the first part we did yesterday. And I think that this is going to be a really, really crucial thing. I think there's going to be an awful lot of lessons that we can take from this. So we can see that there's been a very tactically placed substitute who's come to basically be a nuisance.
In his onesie.
And that must be Adam telling him to go back to servicing cars. Okay, so he's had those conversations. I think one of the things I wanted to pull back, sorry, if I can just pull back just a second on, is that I thought that this bit was absolutely terrific. We've talked about this, is the fact that while you're sort of delivering that, you've got Kev there who's completely focused on watching that field of play for you. And the way I thought it was sort of akin to was if you think about VAR at the top level now, when the video assistant comes in the ear and says, look, you need whoever the referee is, you need to go over to the monitor. Both assistants are taking responsibility for each half of the pitch. And I think the same concept is in play here. You've got Kevin, who you're in dialogue with, but you've got your other assistant as well, you know, who you touched on when we were talking about it in the first part yesterday. You touched on the importance of your semi-active assistant, and he'll be managing his part of the pitch as well while you're in this corner, because clearly we can see your position here. You haven't got a great view because what your focus is establishing the facts. So I think that's a really, really important thing, and it's great teamwork, and I hope you got credit for that.
Yeah, even though it looks like I might up Kev's rear end, I'm not.
It was brilliant. And Penners, Anthony said, "Oh my God, look at his face when he goes away. You must have really put him in his place."
Did you take? Was it a polite? Could you leave the area, please? We're having a conversation, or was it, mate? Fuck off. Was it? What was it?
It was.
Like that.
Yeah. Said, fuck off, or it's a yellow card.
Was it legit? Was that what you said? Was it
exactly what I said?
That's exactly my style as well. That's it. You can, and he kind of was like, okay then, and that was it.
Maybe I'm too nice.
Obviously, I'm not swearing at players, of course, but you know, I did it the way I did it. It always worked for me. Yes, you shouldn't really swear at players. So the polite version is, please, could you go away, or you may be cautioned.
Textbook.
But my way seemed to have the desired effect.
In all fairness, I think you could probably come somewhere in between the two there and still get the desired outcome.
So do you mean, please fuck off?
No, I mean... go away. Thing is, I don't know. The thing is, I can't see the wall there. I know they're laughing at me. I can't see the wall there. But what I'd be worried about is that basically the observer or somebody was maybe a little bit too close. Because some rounds I've been...
He's never going to be anywhere near there. He's going to be somewhere in the stand near the middle of the pitch. He's never going to hear down there. With 800 plus supporters, He's not going to hear a word unless he's gone for his pie and chips and he's stood down there near the burger van. Yeah, and I think that's probably something I fail to appreciate, because I'm assuming, quite rightly, I think, that the majority of the supporters were behind you at this point. I mean, the crowd noise at this point was still, obviously, there was still quite a bit of crowd noise. Yeah. So pretty much the only person who could have really heard me would have been the assistant and the substitute. Yeah.
Now, it's clear, I was going to say, it's clear you're not screaming at him, but you are, it's a firm, assertive, go away.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, tonight there's a Scottish player's being sent off, and there's a clip on Twitter doing around Scottish player, and the referee gives a foul and he does something, and it looks like he shouts whatever he shouts to the referee. Do you mean last night? This was last night.
That was yesterday.
That was yesterday. I mean. recorded it. I recorded it. I'm only watching it now. Fuck's sake.
You fucked it.
Listen. Yeah, okay. We do this on the same night. Make it look like it's tomorrow. Anyway, and he's done him. He sent him off. He sent him off, and it's a nice little accidental clip here because linked together because this ties in a way I wasn't thought I was going to talk about in the Goldilocks bit. I personally wouldn't advise someone to deal with anything like that by telling them to fuck off. Pennis has got the personality of it. And we've got to be mindful that we have got referees out there watching this. We've seen how many people watch these clips, and we've got to be mindful that isn't the Goldilocks way to deal with people.
No, not at all.
It's not the right way to do it, Martin.
Yeah, that's not blanket advice at all.
You can't condone that as by the book.
Yeah, and when I was laughing, I wasn't laughing at you, Nate. I didn't want you to think I was laughing at you because you're pulling up. I'm laughing at how blatant these have been about it. Now, I'll be honest, my other personality-driven referee, I've done that. I did tell people, and I did swear at them. But it's the effectiveness of what you do, and sometimes that's the language of the individual. Sometimes you just don't listen to you. As soon as you say, "Hey, for fuck's sake, what are you doing?" They sort of go, "Whoa." But then we've had incidents where, "Oh, I want that referee suspended because he swore at me." You get these players, and then it's a really tricky one to do.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I've ever said this to you, Martin, and I don't know what your opinion about this as a coach is, but when I first qualified, my mentor actually said to me, "Nathan," he said, "you can say absolutely anything you want to say to the players, to the spectators, to any club officials, just don't swear at them." Mm. That was the genuine line, and I remember it so clearly.
And I don't think anyone would have told Pennis to do that early on in his career. I think as you go through and you get that confidence, you'll see. Remember what Pennis said about knowing his players? Knowing his players, he knew about the dropping zone. We talk about targets. It's something we haven't talked about on this blog, about your targets of management. There's always targets of management from set pieces and stuff that we will talk about another time. Knowing your players is really important. There's probably players, Pennis, that you could swear at every day of the week. Nothing would happen. They'd swear back. Their temperature would go down. Everyone wins. But there's others that they would lose their shit if you swore at them on a pitch.
Yeah, I mean, I could name, which I won't, but I could name several players throughout my refereeing career who, at the start of my career, if you like, were probably the biggest pain in the ass on the pitch. Whereas come to the end of my career, some of those have become really, really good friends and still are good friends now, because some of those players, sometimes the player who's the hardest work on the pitch, if he knows that he can have a bit of two-way banter with you and it is two-way and you both know where the line is, sometimes that's the only thing that works with that type of player. And come the end of the game, the amount of times I did a game where the biggest knobhead on the whole pitch at the end of the game was the first person to come and shake my hand and say, "Thanks, ref. At least I've got someone I can talk to today. We had a bit of two-way banter, So, yeah, don't get me wrong. There's other times when it's gone against me and I've said something like, even something like, I remember a player appealing for a corner. It was a goal kick. And he appealed and I went, "Shut up." And he literally lost the plot because I told him to shut up. And it took me, I couldn't get him on side for the rest of that game. It probably took me, as stupid as it sounds, I had to referee that team probably another 4 or 5 times before I got him back on board. So, yeah, it's certainly, it's not advised. I don't condone it at all. Obviously, I was just a head case that did it my way, and luckily it worked for me 90% of the time. But yeah, certainly, you shouldn't ever really be swearing.
Thanks, Pennis. I really appreciate you coming in with that, because it is important when we have these people coming through. We've talked about how society changes. We talked about rent boy, people calling people rent boy, and then the N word, and then we could be hypocritical saying, we've evolved in language, but it's still perfectly okay to tell a player to fuck off. And I think we just got to be mindful where we sit ourselves there. And when I want to just tie that in, Pen, is a couple of things. Is one, I remember clearly talking to you about a particular player who we're not going to mention, who always made your life hell. Pain in the ass, covered in tattoos, hard work. And you had him, didn't you? He'd moved teams, hadn't he? And he'd gone down to a team. And we talked about it. Pardon?
That's exactly who I'm talking about. And I won't name names because he's now a very, very good friend of mine. But the initials was JV.
Yeah. And the only way you got into his psyche was by using the exact same language back that he was using to you, and you were almost fronting him. And we had a long discussion about it. I remember talking about it a long time. It plays on my mind a little bit because it was the right thing to do for the right player in the right situation. So I couldn't knock you for having that language and that confrontation attitude with him, but it was just something I wanted to sort of clarify and just put in the picture, because that just changed your whole relationship with him for the rest of your refereeing career, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, if you remember, one of the first times I refereed him, we almost had a fight on the pitch, didn't we?
Yeah, I remember it clearly, absolutely clearly, yeah. And it's just an interesting involvement of player-referee relationship. Whereas we know it's not good advice to swear at players. We know there's going to be people out there who would never dream of swearing in a million years. But like we say about our toolboxes, and I know the FA will say, oh my God, that's ridiculous, a charity shouldn't be advocating it. It's going to have to be in your toolbox at a time to pull out at the right time with the right player in the right game, just to make sort of you personalised to say, for fuck's sake, really? People do respond to that positively. But I just wanted to be mindful of me because, you know, that was a brave move by you. And I just think referees make brave moves, in inverted commas, in games and in careers. And that was one of the ones you did that really worked for you. So, you know, I wanted to recognise that, mate. So thanks.
But don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah, it's not going to end up on the referee's course, that one.
Anyway, if I'm going to move this forward a touch, because obviously I think it's really good that we've had that and we don't condone that. But I think one of the real sort of things which I think a lot of people who are watching this hopefully can use as a learning point is that dialogue between yourself and Kevin, Adam. I wonder if you could give us a bit more of an insight into that. Before you ran away, obviously, I wound it back there just before we saw you running away. So if you give us some of the insight into the dialogue and some of the information that he gave you there and the way that he gave you that information as well for people who are operating as assistants to think about how they might communicate with officials under pressure like this.
Yeah, so like I said, you know, as part of my pre-match in this game and moving forwards at that level and above, my pre-match was always, you know, yeah, when I got to 2A, we had the comms, the headsets, you could speak to each other. But obviously at this level, you don't have that. So if you've got buzzer flags, then like I said to people, they don't replace your standard signals, but they are an aid and you use them as an aid to help you. And this is a prime example of where, like I said last night, not today, last night, you know, when the goal was scored, as far as I was concerned, it was a goal, but the reaction of the defensive team told me something wasn't right. But what told me something definitely wasn't right was the fact that Kev had listened to my pre-match and he had his finger held on that buzzer and my arm was going absolutely berserk. So I knew he had information for me. It was just a case of deal with the fake injured player, get everyone out of the way, and then go over to see him. So obviously when I've come over to Kev and almost got tripped up by the ball, thanks goalkeeper, you know, I already know that he's got some vital information for me. I already know that before I've got to him. So when I get to him, when I say, right then, Kev, what have you got for me? Obviously, as we've already discussed, the first thing was to get rid of the sub because he doesn't need to be listening. So we'd get him to disappear politely. And yeah, I know. And then I'm just black. The problem is I'm a salesman. I'll always sell and just blag my way through life, but it's worked. So Kev has then told me as the ball's come across the goal, the player who scored has deliberately punched the ball into the back of the net, 100%. It's this player, it's a caution and disallow the goal. And that was basically what he said. And I said, thanks,
Brilliant.
Kev.
Yeah.
And I pretty much said, thanks, Kev. I didn't see that. You're a lifesaver. I'll go and sort it.
And that's all you needed. You knew what your application of law was. You knew everything else, just all you needed. Really clear, really concise. And
it looks like he's still got his finger on the frigging buzzer now, doesn't he?
Yeah, did you say, Kev, you can let go now, mate?
I had to change the batteries after that game.
But one of the other things I always remember about you, Pen, is doing it. You know, you've always wore that respect sticker on your arm, didn't you?
Yeah.
There wasn't many referees at that level. I can't ever remember seeing a referee at that level. You always wore that respect. Fair play. It was always something stuck in my head about you. I didn't see any other level 3s or 2Bs having that respect sticker on their arm. I know now they've got the EA Sports on at 2B and 2A, but I always respected that in you, that you had that respect thing on you. It's something, even though we're talking about like swearing at players, you did believe in that sort of relationship, didn't you?
No, I mean, the thing is, the reason that I always wore it is because obviously it was there and we could wear it. And as we discussed last night, I did a hell of a lot of work to get to that level and be fit enough to last 120 minutes, not 90 minutes. So I always made an absolute point of being close to play with a good angle, so that as soon as something happened, if someone turned around to question it, I would be there to say, look where I am. And for me, that was what got me the respect, not wearing the badge. It was being close to play in a credible position, all over it, so that when it was questioned, I would literally be able to say to them, I'm stood here, look where I am. And that's what got me to where it got me, to be honest.
Well, fair play. Nate, are you going to play the bit and then
I am, yeah.
A bit in the middle when he blows his whistle?
Yeah.
Before you play this, just to let you know, because Kev's given me such good information, what I've then said to him is, watch me now go and fuck this up.
Interestingly, it was a good appointment from the FA, because Kevin was a very experienced level 4, wasn't he?
Oh, top lino.
So he was a good appointment for you. Another lino might have completely buggered that up for you.
Have we got any background music now?
When you've blown the whistle, you've sort of pointed towards the centre spot, which in universal language, particularly with a lot of people watching top level football at the moment, is particularly when VAR's happened and things like that, we know that it's the prevalence of that signal at the top level is grown over the past couple of seasons. And I think that actually, unfortunately, Ant and I, when we spoke about this initially, we concurred that basically giving a goal on first viewing by looking at that.
It's not unfortunate, because when I blew that whistle, the whole crowd cheered, thinking I'd awarded a bloody goal.
Yeah. So you must have known instantaneously that was the wrong signal to make.
As soon as I did it and they cheered, I was like, oh shit, because I'm going to upset you now.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to touch on, and it was something that I sort of promoted the concept of, and Martin and Ant agreed, was just that idea that actually, if you don't mind, I'll just pull it back just a touch, was that basically I was saying that potentially you could have conducted that here when you did it, because as you can see here, we've got nobody around here. There's nobody else here. So you could have brought them into a neutral space. I just wondered if, when you were reflecting back on that, was that something that you also thought?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So reason being, yes, it could have been done in a neutral area. So the reason I wasn't doing it there, where I'm stood now, is because if I call them over to me there, then the yellow players are suddenly going to be walking up the pitch. They're suddenly going to put in their 2 pennies worth, and it could potentially look messy. So that's the reason. That's one reason why. The main reason why I go over to the players is because of the way I am, because I'm confident and my personality. As far as I'm concerned, I'm taking control of the situation. Here's what's happening. I'm coming to you. I'm in charge, and this is how it is. That was my thought process at the time. That was my natural instinct on how to deal with it. Obviously, in terms of looking back at it, obviously afterwards, moving forward, and even looking back now, even though it's several years ago now, this clip, this is a prime example where first thing is don't blow the whistle and point to the centre circle. Yeah. You're in big trouble there. So I think in this situation, I even thought at the time, what if I double blew the whistle instead? Double blow. But with a big crowd, some will still only hear the whistle and think goal. So I think this is a prime example of where the non-verbal communication as I'm walking across the pitch at this moment. You know, you could even then sort of stop here, stop a little bit towards the right-hand side of the semicircle. But as you're going over, you're almost cutting the grass like this. So everybody looking in is going, oh, he's disallowed it. He's disallowed it. I know generally you cut the grass. If it's a big penalty appeal and you need to sell the decision, you cut the grass. You know, I think this is a prime example where if I'm walking across the pitch here and cut grass, I think that would sell to enough people. Oh, hang on a minute, this is disallowed.
And you'd have more time as well, wouldn't you? Because obviously I'm looking here, you've got your left hand in your pocket, and I'm presuming that's where you keep the yellow card.
Yeah, I didn't have an itch. That's where the yellow card is.
Yeah. So obviously, if you'd done that, you would have basically said there's not going to be a goal here, and then you could have started the caution procedure.
Correct. Yeah, totally correct.
I see there you've got the offending player and the club captain, but you've also got a third player there.
The third player is just there as an audience. All I'm really interested in here is the player who's obviously committed the offence and the captain who was pretty much, to be fair, he was a bit of a live wire, but anything that needed doing, if he was involved and he was there, he, as a referee in that game and even moving forwards, he always worked with me really, really well. So he needed to be there to help with me selling the decision. The number 8 doesn't need to be there whatsoever. And obviously the issue you've still got here is that, you know, the decision, even though it's been made, the decision has not been sold whatsoever.
Yeah, and I just wanted to gauge what your conversation was with the players just before the yellow card was produced, because...
Yeah, so it's quite simply, obviously the ball hit the back of the net. I didn't see an offence. My assistant did see the ball being punched in to the back of the goal. Therefore, the goal is disallowed. It's a yellow card. Simple.
So it's crucial that you mentioned there it's a yellow card, because obviously you'll have seen in the preamble to this, we were all, including Martin, of the opinion that you hadn't effectively communicated.
No, incorrect. I am so mouthy, I indicate everything. So when I watched the first episode or two of this, and you mentioned about the guy looking up, just be dopey, because I told matey that he was getting a yellow card. The captain knew he was getting a yellow card as well. Right. That was done verbally. I probably do everything I do is done verbally. So 100% he was told. So that was just a case of him just wanting to have a look at the yellow card, really. Maybe he hadn't seen one for a game or two. I don't know. Do you mind if I move this forward, gents?
Yeah, go on.
Because I have got a question about this moment here, where we see this. That's where I was going to link it to what I asked you before about the neutral zone. I'm just wondering if you could potentially, because obviously he's now aware that Kevin's had an involvement in this decision-making process, because it's him that he's made a beeline for. Yep. I'm correctly assuming, I presume. Correct. So, again, if you'd done that potentially in a more neutral zone, is that something that you maybe potentially could have cut out? I don't know. Yeah, definitely. But let me switch that over and ask you a question. Yeah. If I'd have done this where you first suggested the other night and a minute ago, how close would these players be to the assistant? Yeah, it'd be closer, and I totally take that on board. The neutral zone here, like I said, is on the other side of the centre circle, almost so they might be near the semi-active assistant who's got no involvement at all. Yeah. But on the other side of the centre circle, there's no way they can even shout across or get anywhere near the assistant who's been involved in the decision. Yeah. But where you wanted me to stop, 100%, that would have been worse, because the assistant had involvement and ultimately had made this decision. Yeah, no, I can take that. And I think that's a great thing, not just for me to think about when I'm looking at a decision, but also I think for a lot of the referees that'll be listening to this.
I think finding a Goldilocks zone is that by the time there would have been so much space between them and the lino that if you had to call them, number 10, come here, they don't need you, don't need you, don't need you, before he gets to you, that gives you time to keep them away at a long enough distance for you then to go, look, my lino spotted the handball, I'm doing you. And I think in between both of them, with a mixture of both, you still could have controlled that.
Yeah, definitely. There's plenty of safe neutral zones on that pitch that I could have used, which would have been better than where I am now, better than where I was when I blew the whistle. There's plenty more safe zones that would be much better and would have been more effective.
Well, they were in their own half, ready to start with a goal, weren't they, Weymouth? So if you would have been easy to control them and said, I don't need you, I just need you. And you could have controlled him, well, no, stay there. And he could have gone to a nice and softer area, but still had that effectiveness. But what you were always really good at is that when you were in it, the thick of the action here, because this is another thing we've talked about with confidence. Sometimes your confidence can be so high, you're never intimidated. You don't mind going in there. You know, you can handle all that, which you've proven you can handle. Look at him. He looks like a mass murderer, doesn't he? No. Listen to you, absolutely no problems at all. So again, finding the Goldilocks in all of this, there's good ways of doing it. There's one's managed really well, but some of them you could do a much better in a much better area. But nevertheless, this is another thing in your toolbox, was your identification of the target of your trouble. It's him, innit? Not the lad you just booked. Look what he's...
The lad who gets cautioned knows he's getting cautioned. He knows he's done it. He's just been caught. The captain hasn't seen in handball it. So as far as he's concerned, it's the lino's fault. Simple as that.
Mm. And do you know what you said about going right back to the beginning about triggers and signals in warm-ups? Something that I use a lot in it. I talk to all of them about finding clues in warm-ups. You know, you can find clues in warm-ups how they play with dead balls, how many free kicks they're practicing, and in a warm-up, knocking it a goalkeeper, what foot the goalkeeper kicks with is always a really good thing to try and find out in a warm-up, because if the ball gets played back to the goalkeeper's wrong foot, you guarantee the forward's going to close him down. If it's on his right foot, the one he kicks with, then he won't close him down. So all these clues can get picked up. In this one, there's another clue about maybe how players are going to be. The captain, the aggressive one, is the only one that's cut his sleeves off to have short sleeves. The absolute only one on that pitch. He's one of them, come on. It's just another clue that you might be able to use in your game plan at the start of a game. He's the only one that's cut off his sleeves.
That's why me and him got on so well, look, because I always wore short sleeves.
Yeah, apart from the ref, yeah. But it's just these... Penners was right in identifying like people in warm-ups, and it is an opportunity warm-ups to find out who these players could be a pain in the arse. They've either got the socks over the knees, no one else has, they're the loudest. Maybe the collar are up on the shirt when they used to have collars. There's loads of things. Don't waste your warm-up on just warming up. Would be a really good tip for you to use. Try and get clues of things that might help you during your game. So what else do you want to throw into here then, So?
Well, I was just going to say, we've chatted about the pointy pokey finger, but we also said actually in this instance it was used to kind of sweep him back into position. So if that had been a thrusty one, like fuck off, get back in your own half sort of thing, that would have been a bit of an issue. But as we watched it back a couple of times, you've gone, whoa, back you go over there.
Top draw.
Yeah, lovely stuff. That kind of wraps up what we've been talking about this clip for the past few episodes. I just want to say that was 3 minutes of your game. How did the other 87 go? And we've got 3 more weeks in lockdown, so
be honest with you, bar this sequence of events, the game actually went really, really well. Come off at the end, no hassle, no beef, no issues. Both clubs were happy. The observer was happy. And I ultimately came off and thought, yeah, you know what, I've done for my first game at this level. I've done all right here. I've made a few boo-boos, but overall, I think I've done all right. And then obviously when I watched it back, then obviously I self-assessment wise, then I totally hammered myself because I was thinking there's so many poor practices you've done here, and that's not good enough. You're not doing that again. And I think you have to be honest with yourself. And when you're good, admit you're good, say you're good. But when you're not good, also be honest and say, I remember going to a club, slight different story to this. I was a level below this, and I went to a club in the Southwest and I refereed, and I had an absolute shocker. It was the first time I ever refereed this team. And I had a shocker. I was awful. I literally got appointed to them 3 weeks later, and I turned up, and it's the only ground ever where I've turned up where the team have actually said, "Oh my God, not you again." And I was always very proud to go into a club and a club saying, "Oh, hi ref, nice to see you. Oh, we're glad we've got you today." So when I turned up at this club, and obviously they weren't happy to see me, I just turned around to them then. And I said, "Look, lads, I know what you're saying. Last time I was here, I was absolutely shocking. I'll try and be better today." And they literally just stood there in shock and went, "Oh, okay. Oh, fair play, ref. All right, then just don't be as bad as last time." I said, "I will not be as bad as last time." Luckily, they then won that game 5-1. I played 2 advantages for 2 goals, give them 2 penalties. They spanked the other team, and they thought I was brilliant. But it just goes to show, sometimes you need to be honest. Like if someone appeals for a handball and it might have been handball, but if you haven't seen it, genuinely just say, "Look, lads, I'm sorry if it was, I didn't see it." Because there's nothing they can say if you go, "Oh, sorry, lads, I didn't see it." Just be honest.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Penners, we want to wrap up this clip because the next episode we want to talk about the tremendous help you had from the PGMOL through your injury, and when you got to a 2A referee, different kettle of fish and everything else. So I think on this clip, I did ask you about putting it on, and it's really brilliant that you sort of put yourself open. There's thousands have watched this clip. It's been a really incredible journey during lockdown, where I think all of us want to thank you for, opening yourself up to us, letting us people go into this clip in the detail. A lot of people always find faults rather than the superb stuff you've done. But to have this on your first ever game at level 3, and it was assessed, and you never folded, there's some loads of learning stuff in there, but you stayed strong, and that's all about the mental resilience of a referee, which in the next episode, Nathan's going to be able to lead on it, and we'll talk about all that mental challenges you had from being injured, from getting to the top, being one of the best referees I've ever coached, and the journey of where you are now, and the struggles and challenges that you overcome, but then you have to address again later in the career. So thank you for all your input on this, and on the next episodes we'll be going through the other stuff off the game that Adam has faced during this game. So thanks for your input and thanks for your help.
That was episode 5 of Martin.
Goldie Lockdown!
Yeah!